Okay, so I'm Laurie. I'm based in Ottawa, and I've been in the kind of tech sphere for a long time. In fact, Mariana and I were just reflecting that my experience in the .com days, which there are a lot of lessons to be learned from .com and what's going on now. So my experience is in business development and international development. I worked in telecom. I worked for many years for the World Bank doing tech projects around the world, and got into crypto about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, Laurie has a lot of experience and he passed the big bubble in the .com, and we are having a pitch yesterday where we were having some thoughts about some projects and even how we can differentiate ourselves between so much projects popping up in the internet. So we were glad to be the second best pitch yesterday in the event. So I think was a really big thing for us to also know that we are in a good path here with Housebit. And yes, my name is Mariana. I'm being the CEO of Housebit. I'm more like managing more product, helping with the community, doing a little bit of everything. Laurie is managing more the regulatory part, the business part as well, some investors management. I came from startups, big corporations as well. So I work in fintech in a unicorn called eBanks. I work in the innovation department of Anheuser-Busch. But I was a little bit tired, to be honest, of or big corporations or like a fintech model that I was not more believing. So I just wanted last year to drop everything and come straight to just building the Web3. That was something I was feeling inside of me, and was a good cut for me. Can go ahead, please.
Okay, okay. So basically, the whole concept started a few years ago when we're basically a company that likes innovation. So about 4 or 5 years ago, when there was a lot of talk about the energy consumption of mining operations. Me being a sustainability guy and a biologist, actually by training, I was working with my partner on how to reduce the whole energy concept, and we came up with this idea of using natural ground coupled cooling to cool our servers, which are based in Quebec, and then to use the heat in an agricultural dome to be used for heating greenhouses. So we came up. Everything we do is kind of innovative and cutting edge, of saying what do people need. And once we got that project going, we started to look at other concepts, and the next question was, well, what is it that you don't have right now on the internet? What can't you do? And the big question that came up is, can you can't, well, it wasn't a question, it was an answer, is you can't do anything in real estate. You can browse real estate, you can do a lot of supplementary transaction, but you actually can't get in and with a couple of clicks and a credit card or crypto or transfer, you can't buy or sell real estate online. And that's where we came up with the idea of HouseBit, which is a mechanism of tokenizing real estate, bringing some liquidity to a real estate market and making it really easy and simple and not very costly. One of the big, or more than one thing actually, is we did some surveys in terms of why people don't get into real estate. The cost is obviously one thing, but it is also a really complicated process. It's an intimidating process. It's a process of approvals for loans, approvals for this, approvals for that. Every professional has their hand out during the process. You got to pay lawyers, you got to pay bank fees, you got to pay appraisal fees, you have to pay fees, 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 fees. So the idea with HouseBid is we are tokenizing real estate. We do all the heavy lifting once, and once the property is properly tokenized, you can trade and swap and buy and sell, and you have a liquid asset that you've never had before.
Is to make really more accessible for everyone, and also there is a concept that is very interesting that we're not talking here, that is the NFT that works as a utility. So imagine as a rent but no lease, no contract termination. You just stay as like let's say you are in Airbnb but cheaper and you keep following your monthly obligations per month. So you have the right, like if you want to live as a nomad, is an amazing utility for you because you're buying an NFT that after you can sold again in the market. So you're even like saving the first transactions or first month payments. So there is this concept that came together that is making real estate more accessible through the ownership tokens that is the gives you the right a portion of the property, but in the same time also there is the NFT that is a utility token that let you the right to occupy and to live in a property. So this we open more flexible ways of living and investing in real estate. I think there is a long journey to learn. Right now we are coming with this concept. We don't think we are riding in rocks. We know that we're gonna learn a lot of with the journey. We are already learning a lot with our community, and I think is more the power of being able to like squeeze and to adapt yourself with what the market is wanting from you or what your community is wanting from you. So I think we are in the right mindset to move with this.
Okay, so let's do a quick ABC. So what I did was I introduced the concept of tokenization and liquidity and simplicity. So now we get into kind of the practical. So each property is divided into two types of tokens. There are ownership tokens, which give legal ownership to the property, and there is the single occupancy NFT. For each property, we will mint 1,000 ownership ERC20 tokens, and that represents the direct ownership in the property. Why 1,000? Because it's a really simple number. It's nothing more than that. So you know that if you have a token that's worth or that you paid $1,000 for, it's $1 million house. And the way we structure that is we do it through something called a land trust. And the reason we do that is because the land trust is a very nice legal entity which has a lot of protections for all parties. And what a land trust is an entity, a trust that holds the property. The trust is the legal owner of the property. It's managed by a trustee, which is a fiduciary, an independent fiduciary, and the beneficiaries of the trust are the 1,000 token holders, right? So if you own a single token, you are legally a 1/1000th owner of that property. The property and the trust is registered with the local county, and we do everything fully compliant with real estate law. So everything that we do is every action we take has to comply, well, in the case of Florida, with the Florida Land Trust Act. And this gives a lot of protection and security for the token holders. On the occupancy side, we have a single occupancy NFT, which also can be purchased, and the holder of the NFT, while they're holding the NFT, has the exclusive right to occupy the property. What does that mean? It means that each property comes with certain monthly obligations, like rent, but not really rent. And as long as you meet the obligations and you hold the token, you can live in that property. Now, obligations could be financial, which means you have to pay X number of dollars per month, and obligations may also be that you have to do a certain KYC or application to, if it's a condo, to live in the property. The reason it's not a lease is because it's indeterminate. So it's a monthly obligation. You choose. It could be 1 month, it could be 6 months, it could be 300 months. As long as you meet the obligations, you could live in that property, and it's not a lease because there's no fixed term to it. So it's really, as Mariana said, if you are a nomad or a stable person, this type of occupancy will be very appealing. That kind of get to the crux of it? Good point. Good point. Okay. So they're just like a share, but don't consider it a share because it's not a share, but similar in concept is that when you hold a token, there will be natural appreciation on the property. So a property that's worth $1 million today may be worth 1.1. It may be worth 1.5 in a year. It may be worth 2 million, depending on the market. And just like any other real estate investment, you're going to look at the property and its location and do some homework and say, well, you know what? That's a really good neighborhood, and I think it's going to go up 30% the next year. So in theory, your $1,000 token for $1 million house just on appreciation over a year might be worth $1,300. At the same time, there is a potential revenue component, which is through the occupancy token, the monthly obligations, there are generally, we generally structure them so that there are funds left over at the end of the month after all expenses are paid. Those funds are distributed in accordance with your ownership automatically to the wallets every month. So revenue component, appreciation component.
And yeah, sorry, Zach. So more one thing also to complement. Right now, Laurie said two nice components of the value that someone holding the ownership token can have right away. But after we are talking also about collateral assets, so how we can make like a partnership with AIV or other platform that we can make your ownership token as a collateral for you borrow tokens against it. So there is this model that there, like not just this model, but there is other ways we want to approach this in the future in the roadmap. So really, this becoming as your asset, and as is this is your asset, you can use it for other financial instruments as well.
Yeah, and I just yeah, and I want to harp back a little bit to the security, not securities, but security side of things. Because all of these properties are essentially 100% finance, there's no bank financing. There is virtually no risk of foreclosure. So if you get into another 2008 situation, kind of market crash, and everything is, going down all over it, all around you, the worst that's going to happen is your token's going to decrease in value because the market's gone down. But no bank is going to come and repossess the property because guess what? There is no bank. So it gives you a fair amount of security over traditional leverage real estate investing. The other thing that we're looking at in the future is learning the lessons. And again, you got to learn lessons over time. And one of the lessons is .com. The other one is the housing bust. Is the reason there was a big crash is that they were packaging all of these toxic mortgages and hiding them and bundling them into financial instruments. We think in the long run that tokens can be bundled into financial instruments for financial institutions as well, except that you're not going to really have a toxic component to them like you had in some of these kind of toxic things that brought down the economy like 12 years ago. Yeah. No, there's no expected revenue. I think it's just like any other real estate investment. It's going to be property by property. We don't see monthly obligations to the properties being higher than what would be a normal rent. So a property would have kind of a normal return based on expenses. I think if you're looking potentially 3 to 5%, you're probably doing okay on that, especially on an unleveraged asset. So the return may be a little bit lower than some people are getting 10% or 12% on their real estate, but they've also got bank loans that pose kind of a risk factor the property. So this is really kind of a solid, super secure. So if you're looking at kind of portfolio of tokens, this would be kind of like the gold standard, be the sort of thing that's always going to be there. It's not really going to be subject to speculation. It's kind of your solid base investment.
So I will
Okay,
explain one part, and I will let Laura explain the other part. So, what we are doing normally, we are using Uniswap as our liquidity pool for making like something permissionless. So we don't have controls of wallets of no one. We don't have control of the platform. It's like really permissionless by essence. So we are gonna be providing the tokens in pools there, so everyone will be able to swap or doing anything. In the future, in the roadmap, we probably be evolving Housebit as a marketplace platform where people will be able to trade between there. Still, like as a marketplace, it's very difficult to not difficult, just takes a little bit time to develop it, as you can even imagine this as an open sea for real estate. But in the regulator part, I will let Laura explain a little bit more because he will give you solid facts about it.
Yeah. So again, we chose. Sometimes you have the luxury of choosing the kind of legal jurisdiction that you're going to work under, and we've actively and very strategically chosen to work under real estate law. So because it's kind of an uncharted area, this whole idea of tokenization, and there's a lot of talk about where it fits in. We've chosen to be fully compliant with real estate. So everything that we do is 100%. You go into the Florida Land Trust Act, the Florida Real Estate Act. Everything that we do complies with that. And what it does is it kind of moves us away from the security side of things because we've chosen to be real estate. The other thing is that we've chosen this mechanism called a land trust because it's not a corporate entity. It is just a trust is essentially a private agreement between parties. So it doesn't fit into the security side of things because there are no shareholders, there's no management, there's no corporate structure. The beneficiaries legally instruct the trustee to do what they want, so they're not really even shareholders. Shareholders cannot tell a president of a company what to do. They can hire the president and fire the president, but they have no power over the management of the company. In this case, the token holders, who are the beneficiaries, are 100% in control through this land trust agreement that they've come together with, and we think that's really kind of elegant, and will keep us, on that real estate track.
Also, something
And I think,
interesting to add is that we are constantly looking understanding how a model of DAOs would work with each property. We just don't wanna like already point like every property will be a DAO or something like this, because for us doesn't make sense like start saying ourselves as a DAO or a decentralized structure organization in every property if one doesn't make sense, if two doesn't allow with the regulations, and if three, like if we're not with a really roadmap to make it. So we are, yes, having these ideas in the backlog to make this as decentralized as possible. Right now we have trustee for each property. The trustee is still a person, but maybe soon we can figure out this structure as little DAOs and a big DAO organizing everything.
yeah, this is going to be an evolving process. Evolving. I mean, you look at companies like Airbnb and Uber, and they challenge traditional markets, and they didn't the structure that they're into now is not the structure they started with. They got in, they learned, they adapted. It's called results based management, where you kind of set the ship a sail and you adjust course according to what to where you're going. And I think this is where we see Housebit is that we have it's already evolved since we started working on it last year, and every day and every week and every time we do something, we've learned something else, and we adjust course and we refine.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's all good, and I really appreciate you two describing just the purpose of the token, all the utility, and also like how it fits into someone's portfolio as more of a safer asset. I think you're really doing a good job at just providing the why for your project, which is always the most important thing. And your thoughts on the regulations and how you're going about that is really smart too. The one question I had on that though is, um, I've been doing some research, Zach and I have, into the regulations revolving around this kind of thing too, really just with like any physical asset tying that to tokenization. And one thing that comes up a lot is that a secondary market often makes you a security, just because in that case um, there's people that are purchasing from you. Like in this case, it'd be purchasing the token representing one of your properties, and then they're able to sell it to another person. And like that secondary market, which it seems your project has, I've heard can make you a security if not done properly. And then also the other thing is just the fact that you have this land trust, which is good. And I think that's a really smart way to do it. But there still is that idea of these investors are trusting you with their funds to invest in real estate, and that's a lot of why security regulations are
Yep.
around, is just to make sure that organizations don't go unregulated when they're investing other people's money. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that and how you're going
O-
around those concepts.
Okay, you hit the note. You hit it right there on the head. You said that investors put their money and they rely on a trustee or a trust to invest for them. That's not the case here. The um, we've picked a property so we're not investing and we're not managing people's funds or people's tokens. All that we're doing is we're putting a structure in place that allows them to own it, and the trustee is an arm's length uh, individual who must act as a fiduciary on the instructions and to the benefit of the beneficiaries. So they're not. This is not like I'm going to give you $1,000. I want you to invest it in real estate, and I want you to bring me back 5% a year. This is I'm investing in this particular property. I'm the boss. I'm the beneficiary. I'm hiring you, trustee, just to hold the property to make sure the rent is paid every month, and that's it. But the beneficiaries are in control, and I think that's really the key difference here is that this kind of classic Howey test about profits being made in a common enterprise with expectation of profits,
Hmm.
which is and the profits are accrued by the work of others. There's no work of others here. There is no work of others. The trustee is simply a holding individual and must act on the instructions of the beneficiaries, which are crystal clear on the land trust. Totally different. There's no
Okay,
management here.
I see. So it's the fact that they
Yeah,
can tell you what to do that makes it so that you're not really doing the work for them to get the profit. So like that prong of
that's
the Howey
correct. I
test that you
mean,
mentioned.
it is okay in practical sense, at least initially, and until we get kind of the DAO structure better thought through. The instructions are set forth in the land trust. The land trust says, trustee, you must do this, 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 this as our representative as a beneficiary. So this is not like an active, well, today I want you to do this and today I want you to do that. The beneficiaries have already said, this is what we want you to do. Go out and do it.
Right.
And the management, I mean, there's no body that's making profit here. It's not like you're investing in Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola makes $1 million and they're going to take $100,000 of it and distribute it. There is no profit structure in there. It's basically beneficiaries owning a piece of the property, and the trustee is simply holding it for them.
Okay. Yeah, that's really smart.
I- i-
And
Is it a is it a gray zone? Maybe. But we're prepared. I mean, I think anything that's new is going to have a little bit of challenge, a little bit of push, and so it should. Like
right.
Uber goes in and says, "We're not a taxi, we're a ride share," and everybody says, "No, you're a taxi. No, we're a ride share." Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, in the end, they're a ride share, and they're running under their own set of rules.
Yeah, that makes
think
sense. That's really smart. Go ahead.
I think something that Laurie mentioned that is very important is because it's really a gray area. Like we read the tons and tons of papers about SEC and the running tests and what is really said that is an investment contract, what is not performed as an investment contract, and even the regulations a little bit tricky. So I think it's very difficult to say 100% in the wall like this is we have 100% sure that we are this or we are that. I think we just have the tools to address this in this way, and if something
Mm.
deviates us from the way or from the direction, we're just gonna adapt or point them or way or design and the way we thought, because this is really new. There's nothing related exactly with what we're building. So this is the beauty of the model as well.
Yeah, and I've read a lot. I've read a lot of SEC papers where the SEC has gone after when they find people. What's the what is it the rule that they're breaking? And it's really very often it's pretty obvious. People are issuing coins for something that doesn't exist, and the value of the coin in a year is going to be something that they're going to develop. That's clearly the work of others. And or a coin will be purchased because you think just on speculative purposes it's going to go up in value. In our case, the the value of the coin ought to represent only the value of the underlying asset. So if a house is worth $1 million and there are 1,000 tokens, the token should be $1,000, and maybe there's going to be a little premium for um, liquidity, and maybe there's going to be a little premium because you think it's a little undervalued, but it shouldn't be selling for $2,000, right? It should be,
Mhm.
and it should be based. So the value of the coin is not based on the work of others; it's based on the underlying asset. And the thing that I like to talk about, and some people laugh, some people don't, but I'm a big fan of Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert is forever dumping on NFTs and crypto, right? That's part of his monologues all the time. But he did partner with Polygon to do a fundraiser where he wrote some of his script on a paper bag, and he was going to sell a coin. He was going to sell that paper bag with his handwriting on Polygon, and he called it not an NFT. He called it an AFT. And I'm not going to tell you what the F in AFT is, but it's an actual something thing. And I think we're kind of moving to something where it's real, right? It's just not a virtual. This is a real asset, value based on a real asset. And again, that's where I think we are different from where when the SEC goes after these kind of speculative situations.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. You two have really thought through this extremely well, so yeah, I'm impressed. And Zach, we have some questions in the chat too. Do you think it'd be a good time to go to that?
Okay, so on the tokens themselves, the taxes are the responsibility of the token holder, just like with any other investment. If you buy something for $1 and you sell it for $1.50, I mean those tax implications are yours. There are no tax implications for the property itself. The property pays property taxes, but don't forget the property is always going to remain in the trust. So there is no tax, there's no appreciation tax unless for any reason the property is sold. Maybe it's going to be sold because it's been expropriated. Maybe it's going to be sold for whatever reason. And then the distribution of those sales will go to the token holders, and they'll be responsible for their own taxes, just like just like stocks, but it's not a stock. Personal, yeah, personal base. I mean, we don't do any withholding. It's all done arm's length. It's your responsibility. On a tax side, again, personal responsibility. If I'm in Canada and I noticed this year for the first time in my tax form, first time I saw, have you made any money from cryptocurrency transactions? I have to say yes, or I have to say no. And if I say yes, then I have to declare them. So that's what we do now in Canada. I'm not sure what happens in the States, but it's like any other transaction. It's up to you. That's a good question, and that would be completely up to the specific property and the rules of the property. So if for example um, we had some issues where we looked at buying a co-op. The co-op rules are very very specific. Anybody who lives in that property has to go through the regular KYC. They did not like this particular co-op did not like the idea that that the property would be held in a land trust. And that kind of makes sense because when you buy a co-op, you're not really buying the property, you're buying shares in the co-op association. Um, I don't think it's really intended to be that way. I think it can be depending on the property. Yeah, that's a good question. So each property, the trustee is going to hire a property manager, and again, that's a standard thing. And property managers charge like 3 or 4%. The trustee will direct the property manager how to market. Well, they won't say how to market, but they will tell them we want X number of dollars per month, and they'll find that, and the all those costs come out of the monthly obligations, just like in a rental system.
And
It's
there is
it's really
something
in theory. No, go ahead, Marianne.
Something very important to add is that even we forgot to tell here, but all the properties will also be listed in the MLS, that is the multiple listing service in America. So if someone wants to buy the ownership token, we will have the link there to access the ownership token as much as the rents. So we are going to be listed in a big listing, having all the real estate agents with us as well, as much as we already have 20 real estate agents, one broker, and an office full of people that wants not just to help us to sell the ownership tokens, but as much as the rent of the property.
Yeah, very good point, Mariana. And I'm going to add one more thing to that. And again, another reason we went with real estate law is this whole idea of multiple listing, and another reason where we're yet another kind of further distance from this whole securities law is that MLS has agreed to list the tokens. So um, again, one more arm's length away from that whole security side of things. You bet.
I think even, sorry, Zach, about this point, Laurie is dealing with the listing in MLS, so even about updates about it, Laurie, if you have any updates, also you can tell everyone here about how we are dealing with this as well.
Yeah. Well, it's been kind of an interesting experience because we're about to launch our first property, and you go through these growing pains, and putting the end of the story is everything is fine, but it was really very much like trying to put a round peg in a square hole, because it was a matter of trying to figure out within the MLS listing, how do we even just describe it, right? It was a bit of a challenge, but we worked it out with the brokers, and we do have full compliance both on the occupancy side and the ownership side for our MLS listings. I think even they were surprised. Yeah. Mariana, you want to deal with that on the DAO side?
So this is something we need to agree with the token holders. A normal consensus of decisions would be that if 51% of a group that corresponds to the ownership agree with a sell price or any decision, we would be following this decision, right? And the trustee would be following this decision. I think we are going to be evolving to understand each property, but this is something we need to arrive in a consensus of a group and to make these decisions about not just to sell the property, but about everything, the rent price, the costs, any kind of probably like repair or anything. It's something probably the group we need to be deciding. And Laurie maybe can give us more updates about how would this be working in the land trust part, but in a DAO part or in a group part would make sense we follow a consensus together.
Yeah. I mean, from a legal perspective, since the trustee represents the beneficiaries and must act to the benefit, always to the benefit. In theory, the trustee could say, you know what, it's a great market. I'm going to sell it. Or, you know what, I smell a market crash and I think it's to the benefit to sell this property right away and distribute the funds. In theory, the trustee could do that. I think practically speaking, though, because of the liquidity that we're creating, even if you own 3 or 4 tokens, if you think it's time to sell the house, you can sell your tokens. If the house is worth, if the value of the tokens represents the underlying value of the property, it's really, what does it matter if you sell the house or if you sell your tokens? You're going to get the same amount of money. I mean, I see us becoming a huge property, basically a huge property pool, and I think that's gonna be awesome if we have, you know, 500,000 properties within the housebit ecosystem. You can sit and you can buy and sell within the ecosystem much easier than buying and selling properties. Yeah, yeah. We don't use those terms because it's not a security. Yeah, yeah, I'm kidding. Yeah, yeah. In the US, there are no you can have 1,000,000 beneficiaries. There is no limits, because it's a private agreement, there are no limits to the number of beneficiaries. So 1,000, as I said, is a nice number because you can just take the token value, multiply times 1,000, you get the value of the house. If your token is $1,000, you know that your house is worth $1,000,000. It's really simple. It's more math than anything else. Okay, I'm not sure about that. I mean, you don't use the tokens to purchase properties. You use crypto or fiat to purchase the tokens, which are attached to the property.
Also, we are
Unless I'm
gonna
missing
We are gonna be having
it.
the documents of each property, and something very interesting about our model is that inside the land trust and the private agreement, we have that the beneficiaries are the token holders of the smart contract address. So even the land trust is signed by the smart contract address creator of the tokens. So there is a lot of blockchain concepts and all of this, and we're gonna put it everything on chain. So I think we don't want to like how was the word they use in the question? Let me see here. Convince. We don't want to convince no one. Like we are here to really make something disruptive. We want to provide all the information as possible. We want to build with the community, but we're not here to convince people exactly about come with us. We are promising you this, and that. No, we are being transparent. We are going to be providing all the information as possible. We are going to be providing the legal documents. We are going to be able to hear, listen, and talk with people. We are going to be able to adapt ourselves to the model and to new designs of tokens, new designs of our system, to take our suggestions, our roadmap for our company. But I don't think we're going to convince no one. We're going to provide everything that we're doing. And if someone feels that this is worth to have in the portfolio to diversify and even to be building with us in this journey, I think this is the right relation, right? Because we are not having relations convincing people or promising things to people. We are here to build something that we understand can have a great value for a lot of people. So who's that feel this value, who's that agree with these values, with these principles will come along us. Who is still a little skeptical is okay. Maybe they're gonna take time. Maybe it's the adoption curve of innovation, right? Where we have the early adopters, the laggards, all the innovation curve, and we understand that's okay. We are gonna keep providing education. So we have a big marketing team just to make like a good path and educating people about the all the concepts, these new concepts that we are bringing to educate more people because we also understand that one of our missions is to onboard more people in this, in not just the real estate concept, but also the Web3, because we understand we are bridging between real estate is really like a concept that didn't have so much change since 2006 with Zillow. So we understand that for we make this liquid, accessible, and scalable, we need to onboard more people. And for this, we're gonna make
Mm.
with education, but will not happen from the day for night.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to replace traditional real estate. I mean, Uber didn't replace taxis. The taxis there. Everybody's going to have their market. We're going to appeal to a certain. I'm very more market oriented, and we're going to appeal to a certain type of investor and owner and occupier. We're not going to hit the entire market, but we don't have to. I think we can be sufficiently disruptive to have a really big and efficient organization. Yeah, but but I will add one thing. The one thing that we learned through this process is there are a lot of real estate brokers in the world. Like in Florida, where we started, there are, I mean, there are thousands and thousands, thousands of brokers, and they're starving. They don't have enough properties to sell. There are more brokers than there are demand for brokers. So one of the things that company like Zillow did when they came in, they were a threat to brokers because basically Zillow comes in and they replace the whole broker system. We've taken the other thing. We said, there's a ton of idle capacity here. There's a ton of brokers that are looking for a new way to make money. And we think that these folks that are sitting and thinking, what's going to be my next paycheck? They're going to be the ones that are going to be going out there and pushing the tokens because it's in their benefit to do that. No, other way around. We will purchase the property and then we'll tokenize it and then we'll put the tokens on the market. You don't buy the tokens and not know what property that you've already bought. That becomes then we get into speculation, then we get into the work of others, then we become the investment advisor. We don't do that. Super question. The answer is one property, one land trust, one set of tokens. So when you buy a token for 234 Main Street, you're buying a token for just 234 Main Street. And in that way, you can buy a token for this property, a token for that property. You can take your 10,000 bucks instead of investing in 10% of one property, you can buy 1% of 10 properties. And again, that's a very uh, again, away from securities. You're basically investing in that's not a pool of assets, a single asset. Now, that to be clear, that asset may be an apartment building with 1,000 units in it, but you're investing in that single, title. Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it would be like a mutual fund. Good question. So the short answer is no, because the token holders are beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are not liable for, you can't sue beneficiaries for that. The other thing is that the beneficiaries, we don't know who the beneficiary is. We know that we know the token um, number, but we don't know who the token holders are. So, and the trust is private. It's a private agreement. The trust itself and the terms of the trust is public, but the beneficiaries are private. There's no requirement under law to disclose the beneficiaries, and that's one of the neat things about. That's basically how rich people protect themselves in the real estate market. It's this whole land trust thing, which is very underused by anybody else. And it's if you know the story about uh, Disney World in Orlando, the reason that they were able to run around and buy thousands and thousands of acres of land in Orlando without anybody knowing what was going on is they were all purchased through land trusts. So nobody knew who it was that was running around and buying all this swampland. Because if they did, then guess what? The price of that swampland would have been worth. Yeah, and like I said to a group yesterday, that competition is good because they ask who are your competitors, and I think anytime you're into kind of something as disruptive as this, the one thing that's going to make you successful is acceptance, and the more mainstream and disruptive technology becomes, the more successful it's going to become. So we welcome competition. It's great. It's great. Makes us more competition makes us more credible. Exactly. The land trust, the deed is in the name of the land trust. So if you go to the local county office and you say 234 Main Street, who owns it? You'll see that it will be owned by Land Trust 1234. That's exactly what happens.
I think
Well,
I
for
will
me,
handle this. Yeah, can go ahead, Lori. Sorry.
just quick. I love the questions because we can't think of anything. Anytime somebody asks us a question that like we need to be able to answer it. If we can't answer it, we got a problem. So I like questions. I like tough questions. Anybody who wants to ask me anything, go ahead and challenge me. I think that it's only going to make us stronger.
I agree with Laurie. It was very, very thoughtful questions. It's amazing to have this kind of questions from the community because we know people are really interested to know how we are making this. And also I understand that we being able to answer this make everyone feel more comfortable about our model and how much effort we are putting on this. So my last words would be like we are more than glad to be talking about more with Housebeat, with other communities, thinking like mid and long-term partnership. We are launching after the permissionless, so if there is anyone coming to permissionless in Florida, I will be there, so you can talk with me there. Also, we are in Miami, we have an office in Miami, so everyone that is in town and wants to see our office, visit our office, or even work from there any day, please feel free to come. Also, in June, we are gonna be in consensus, so feel free to anytime, send a text to us or I don't know. We are very open doors for everyone that wants to meet us, to see how we are doing, to meet also the agents we have in the office, to even please talk suggestions, feedbacks, design of tokens, everything. After our launch will be possible opening positions for DeFi, even maybe other blockchains positions as well. So yeah, enter our community. Probably you're gonna be giving away 3 whitelist spots for who stayed here with us in this AMA stage. I thank you so much for you be able to listen us here. Also, sorry guys, I was so tired. We are working so much in this launch, like 24 hours, sleeping almost nothing. But feel free to DM me, message me, or everything. We are like on fire in our Discord and our social medias as well. 23 is the launch of our whitelist. 24 is the launch of our liquidity pool. So please feel free to join us. And thank you so much for your time, your questions. And if you like, join us and let's build this future of real estate we're trying to create here.